Now, this is interesting because we've had the film All the Money in the World, which was based around exactly the same story of the kidnapping of John Paul Getty III, who was the grandson of John Paul Getty, the oil industrialist who had, as the film suggested, all the money in the world. But the story goes that he wouldn't pay the ransom that the kidnappers were wanted basically after. This first episode basically introduces us to the world of the Gettys. It's written and created by Simon Beaufoy, who wrote The Full Monty and has written several films for Danny Boyle, who directs this. Donald Sutherland is playing Getty here, and he's presented as this sort of, how would you describe it? He's got this like harem of women who sort of follow him around. Like Anna Chancellor is the only one I recognise, as you alluded to off the top, to perform in bed because he has a malfunction in one of the.
It's like Gary's here.
Yeah, in one of the during his performance.
In one of the encounters.
Yeah, during his performance with one of his female friends, so he has a doctor come to him and inject him basically, and he also gets aroused by his butler reading him erotic stories. It starts with the suicide of one of Getty's sons. Do you remember the name of the son that kills himself with the?
God, I only saw this yesterday.
Yeah. Kills himself with a fork, doesn't he? A lot of his sons seem to have drug issues, and the son who kills himself.
Massive disappointment.
Massive disappointment to him. The father of the grandson who gets kidnapped, he wants to sort of get back into the business, but he's seen as weak by his father. Then the grandson comes on the scene. He's a bit of a hippie. He is also after money. He owes like $6,000 to the Italian mob. The grandfather seems to take him under his wing to start off with. We get this sequence where he explains the sort of the Getty Empire and everything like that, and the trust. But then he sort of sends him on his way after learning that he posed for what is essentially was Playgirl, and it ends with the kidnapping with the John Paul Getty III
being kidnapped
in Rome.
This I thought worthy of discussion. It's big budget. It's directed by Danny Boyle, who doesn't do a lot of TV. And it is the direction that I noticed initially, specifically in that first opening scene where we see John's son killing himself with the garden fork in the garage while people look on, convincing him to open the door and not do it. That was really well... I was going to use the phrase well executed there, which works on so many levels. Yeah, it was really well done. And it's a world that I'm not really familiar with. I hadn't seen the film All the Money in the World. But unlike the American Crime Story, I didn't get to the end of this and feel like I need to watch episode 2. And that is how I feel that a pilot should make you feel. I enjoyed it while I was watching. I thought all the performances were good. But I just obviously wasn't as connected to it as I thought because I got to wait a week for another one, and I don't know how invested I feel in the rest. And I don't know whether I bought Harris Dickinson as this 16-year-old. That was another thing I struggled with.
Yeah, no, I agree.
When he said I'm 16 at the end, I was like, oh my God. I don't know. I mean, it's not something that was presumably on your radar. I asked you to watch it for purposes of this very podcast. How did you feel? Was it? This was long as well. It was an hour and a bit. Did it feel a slog for you?
Yes. I really struggle with this. It feels like when filmmakers try and do TV, a lot of the time they struggle, and it has that sort of filmic look that me and you both have issues with, in that you feel like distant from it.
Yeah.
And I felt distant from this. What I will say as well is that this just felt like a complete fantasy world. I mean, it was. Yeah. I had no idea it was meant to be England. Even when they were on the oil rigs and he was showing him round, it just felt completely anotherworldly. There was that weird scene where he brought a lioness in to sort of frighten all of his girlfriends. It reminded me that I didn't think Donald Sutherland was particularly great in this role. I mean, I understand that they wanted to show the idiosyncrasies of the character and his sort of weaker side and his more vulnerable nature. but I didn't believe him in the role. I didn't really like him in this. I liked Anna Chancellor as his sort of head woman almost.
She's a reliable pair of hands for most
And
things, though, I'd say.
apparently, as it goes on, Brendan Fraser is very good in it. I read a review.
We saw him briefly.
Did we?
At the funeral in a
All right.
cowboy hat. Yeah.
Okay, but he sort of has a bigger role in it as the story progresses, and Hilary Swank as well. I think as it went on, after they had the funeral and everything like that, it did get better, and I did like. My favourite bit was when he was going through the trust and how he reinvested all his money and stuff like that.
It was a quick, snappy piece, though, wasn't it?
Edited together and things like that. And I liked the relationship between the two of them. I think that was my favourite thing because you did get to see a bit of his human
that's
side.
the only bit of that you'll see now because obviously he's
exactly
been kidnapped.
And the bits I like were few and far between, and I found a lot of it quite dull. And as we said, we find it hard to sort of connect to some worlds like this where it is very opulent. And I think the fact that it's done by Danny Boyle, who is used to directing big screen stuff rather than TV, took me out of it a little bit as well. So, and I do like Danny Boyle as a director as well. I have liked the majority of his films. I really like 127 Hours. I liked Trance, the Steve Jobs film. But
for me, it was more as always it is for me. It's the characters and the story, and I didn't latch on to anyone. And I sort of got to the end, and it ended with, as you say, the kidnapping and the bag being placed. I think it was
another orchestrated scene.
Yeah, but I got to the end, and I thought, if this was on a streaming service, would I go and check my email or do some work, or would I continue on to Ep 2? And I sort of felt like I probably wouldn't watch the next one. I remember enjoying, like you, several bits throughout, but not really connecting in the same way that I did with, say, American Crime Story, which you could argue has a similar opulent world,
and
a lot of
again FX.
FX doesn't really ever put a foot wrong. I don't think we're criticising this, but it's just
not our thing.
It didn't draw me in as much as, because the caliber of everyone involved, you'd expect to, but it doesn't. But that will be coming to Sky Atlantic soon, and we will let you know when.